How's everybody doing? Howling with the Wolf time. NFL draft starts in about an hour and a half. We're sitting here going to be waiting. Is the story. Titans probably not going to pick if they stay at number 25 until a little before 10 p.m. It's been a while since they waited this long, but get cozy. There should be a lot of action at the top of the draft. I talked to an exec who said that there's probably going to be more trades in this first round than there has been in the last few rounds combined. So we'll see how that works. It should be exciting. We're going to wait and see how the draft board plays out. Mock drafts, we've done them all throughout this process. You guys know the Titans' needs. You guys know a lot of the possible candidates. So I guess we'll see how close people were to their predictions. So as always, you know the deal here. I'll talk a little bit. You guys can ask questions, and we'll kind of flow. I'll probably go for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll get into the festivities. I think the draft is always interesting because it's probably one of the most hyped events of the NFL schedule, but everybody is always in tune and wants to know all the hype pre-draft. So that's why it gives all this credence to mock drafts and everything like that. So Jason's asking trade back is what I'm hoping. Is that what's the chances of that? I think I would rank them in order of likelihood. 1, trade back. 2, stay put. 3, trade up. Titans have 6 draft picks in the entire draft, tied for fewest among NFL teams. John Robinson has had more than his 7 in each of his first 2 drafts. He loves his draft picks. Those are his babies, his draft capital. So I'd expect some sort of trades to get more picks. Does that happen in the first round? It's going to depend on exactly who's willing to trade. This is a draft that has its meat in day 2, where the second and third round is. So if your evaluators are thinking the same thing as other evaluators, then everybody's going to want to trade back. And teams early in the second round, late in the first round, often aren't going to want to trade up. But if the Titans find that trade partner, then I'm sure they would love to get an extra third round pick or fourth round pick to move forward and maybe draft someone who's still on the top of their board at that selection. So let me see. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate it. Corey's asking, do you believe Sweat at 25 is a worthwhile pick? I can't get on board with the hype train. It was too early for him. We'll hear a lot about whether it's too early for prospects. One thing I'll say about this is that there are going to be 32 players that go in the first round, and all of them won't be first-round graded players. I think one thing that we sort of lose in this draft process is that teams evaluate their own prospects on their own. I know a lot of teams have 15 first-round grades. Some have 20. Some have 22. Very few, if any, have 32 first-round grades. So if you're picking at 25, there's often going to be second-round grade prospects that you pick with your first-round pick. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way the draft works. It doesn't mean that your pick is a reach. It doesn't mean it's too early. If you like a guy, you go get a guy. Titans don't pick again until 57. So if they like a guy and they think he's going to go in around the 40 range, but they like him at 25 or they like him at 30 if they trade back, then they're not going to hesitate to pick him just because some draft analyst is going to say they reached or something. It's not that serious, honestly. So that's sort of my take on that. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a name they draft that you're like, oh man, he's a second round guy. It was clearly a guy they liked. Let's see. Surprise pick is Will Hernandez. I mean, never know. That would be a surprise. I don't think even if they picked the interior offensive lineman, he's a guy that fits what they want to do. If for some reason it was an interior offensive lineman, and I don't think they'll go that route, I would say someone like a James Daniels, who plays more in a zone scheme, the guy out of Iowa. Fun fact about James Daniels, his dad, LaShawn, played with Mike Vrabel at Ohio State. So that's just a random connection. I doesn't think it's going to matter, but it may be something worth noting or come up in the broadcast tonight. Andrew's asking LVE or Evans. I'm an Evans guy personally, but I don't make the picks. So I know with LVE is sort of the question of this guy's big, this guy is strong, he's athletic, he can move, he's long. Those are a lot of traits that you like in your modern linebacker, whereas Evans, he's a more productive player, comes from more of a blue blood school, but he doesn't fit some of the measurables. I'm not a huge, combine testing measurable guy. If you can play ball on the field, I want you on my team. I don't care what you run, t-shirts and shorts. So I think for me, Evans would be higher on my list. And I know LVE has some medical concerns. I think Evans would be a great pick at 25 if he's available, but I don't think he'll be available. But, you never see. You never know. A lot of times in these drafts, players fall because of whatever. So buckle up. Appreciate that. It was a fun experience. I know Bill Polian got me with the gong, so we'll see who was closer with their projection. I know Bill loves to go gong happy, but I think I was ready with a response. Adam, is there any chance for us coming up for an Alabama stud? Yeah, like I said from the jump, I think you can't rule anything out. I'm sure John Robinson has everything on the board, but trading up would surprise me. If you're trading up, maybe a couple spots at the most, it's got to be for a guy you really love, and you got to figure out how do I circumvent giving up more draft capital in this draft. You only have 6 picks. I doubt if they give up any more picks to move up in this year's draft. And John Robinson's already said that he doesn't like to give up future draft capital. So are you giving up a player? Is there a player that you have expendable that's valuable enough to move up in the draft? I just don't see it. I know everybody wants a Harold Landry or that type of guy. I think he'd be a great fit here, but I don't think he'll be on the board. If he is, John Robinson should send his constituents to run up on the board because he'd be a great fit as a third edge rusher, situational rusher, and I think he could be a really good player in this league. But like I said, I don't think he'll be there. Let's see what we got here. How many trades do you expect for time? I think a lot of it's going to depend on what happens in the quarterbacks. I'm sure you guys have seen it this morning, all the reports about Baker Mayfield maybe going number 1. What happens with Sam Darnold? Do the Giants take a quarterback at number 2? There's a lot that happens early in the draft that's going to impact how much good players fall to the Titans and other teams in the second half of the draft. I think if you're the Titans, if you're teams like the Steelers and other teams that are drafting late in the rounds, you want all these quarterbacks to go high. If they go high, that means that good players that you weren't going to see fall down to you later in the round. So I think that if we see Baker Mayfield go 1, I think you see Arizona as a possibility to trade up for a quarterback. Buffalo is a possibility to trade up for a quarterback. Baltimore, I think, maybe a team that needs a quarterback. I don't know how long you go on the Joe Flacco boat. I think there's a lot of contingencies based on quarterbacks and whoever falls in this draft. I think it'll be the few things I'll always watch, and we sort of had one of them this morning, is who has an off the field thing that comes out of nowhere the day of the draft. And the Josh Allen tweet thing sort of was this year's thing, unless somebody has a gas mask thing that's going to come out in the next hour or so. And then what happens with medicals? There's a lot of players that pass combine tests, don't need to go for rechecks, but each team has their own evaluation. So a lot of times prospects fall because teams didn't clear them on their medicals. So we don't know that. We don't know all the players are going to fall. So there may be a guy who's a consensus top 10 pick, consensus top 20 pick that falls in the first round because he didn't clear a lot of medicals. So those are the 2 things I like to look at. And yeah. Anthony Miller, guy from Memphis. I think he's a really good player. I think he's a second-round receiver. Honestly, I'm not in love with this receiver class. I think that if I was a team drafting, I wouldn't draft any of these guys in the first round. DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley. I know everybody loves Calvin Ridley because he played at Bama and he had a lot of national championship love, but I think he's a number 2 receiver, and I don't think you should draft number 2 receivers in the first round, especially because that's traditionally a position that takes longer to develop. As we saw with a lot of the first-round receivers in the last couple of years. Corey Davis, although he was banged up. John Ross played like 12 snaps. These guys just don't transition as well at that position. So I think Anthony Miller is a guy who can come in and contribute early because of his ability to win on the route running level. He may not be the fastest guy, but he may not have the best hands per se, but I think he's a guy that if you bring him in to be your number 2 or number 3 receiver, he can be a guy that can consistently give you 50, 60 catches a year. And I think that's valuable. Let's see what we got here. Appreciate it, man. Tight end at 25. That would probably be a huge surprise to me. I saw a couple mocks. I don't remember who did them, but I just don't see tight end at 25. I'll just leave it at that. I just don't see it. I know there's some Dallas Goedert fans and Hayden Hurst, and I know Delaney Walker is 33, and Johnny Smith. I just don't see it. This is a team that's moving from smash mouth 3 tight end sets to 3 receiver sets. Why draft another tight end? You just drafted one last year, and you got probably a top 5 tight end in the league at a position that I think is, in my opinion, tight end is the least valuable first round position in the draft, outside of specialists, outside of punter, kicker, all of those. I would draft a running back in the first round before I drafted a tight end, but that's just me. Let's see, Lewis. Do you think we will trade out of the first round completely? I think they could. I think of a team like Cleveland, a team like the Giants, is willing to give them a nice sum of picks to come up to 25. I think the Titans would be perfectly fine trading out the first round. It would suck for us because we'd sit here all day and not get anything done. But that's sort of how it goes sometimes. They sort of have the good team problem. For a while, you draft in the first round, you have to get something. But they have a good team problem where you don't need to get a guy tonight if you don't have to. You don't need a year one contributor for sure. So if they can get great value, I think they'd love to move in that 33 to 35 range and still get maybe their edge rusher like a Sam Hubbard or a Josh Sweat or whoever they want at that selection, because I think that guy may still be there. So yeah, don't be surprised if they don't end up making a pick today. I don't know if anybody's going to be willing to be there and willing to make that jump, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the end result of the night. So yeah, if you guys didn't see, I had a mock draft that came out today, and then we did an ESPN mock draft out in Bristol on Tuesday, and I picked Sam Hubbard from Ohio State as the pick. I'm not. That doesn't mean that he's my favorite prospect in the draft. I just think that from what the Titans need, from what the Titans like, I know they like him a good bit as a player. I know that he fits their scheme. I know that Mike Vrabel and John Robinson value production and play speed over time speed and combine measurables, and that's something that really presses him up the stage. But I wouldn't be shocked if they went a few other routes. So that was just my pick. I know that some people didn't like it, some people do like it, but that's just sort of what I would have picked based on how the board went that night. So yeah, guys. As always, thanks guys for asking questions. We got a good run here. We'll go get some grub and I guess maybe take a nap because we got about 4 hours before the Titans pick probably. But thanks as always. Follow my work at ESPN.com, Twitter at Cameron Wolfe, and we'll probably do one of these at some point before the weekend's over to wrap up. So as always, see y'all guys.